The alarm screamed through the corridors of the Galactic Survey Station Kepler-7 like a wounded animal. Captain Zara Chen's coffee mug shattered against the deck plating as the station lurched violently to port. "Report!" she barked, sprinting onto the command bridge as emergency lights bathed everything in hellish red. "Captain, we've got a massive gravitational anomaly dropping out of hyperspace." Chief Scanner Operator Thix clicked through his translator, his 4 arms dancing across holographic displays. The insectoid aliens' compound eyes reflected the cascade of warnings flooding their screens. "Distance, 2.7 astronomical units and closing fast." Zara gripped her command chair as another shockwave hit them. Through the massive viewport, space itself seemed to ripple like water. Then, emerging from the fold in reality like some ancient leviathan breaching the surface of an impossible ocean, came the ship. It was enormous. Easily 5 kilometers long, its hull was a patchwork of metals that shouldn't exist together. Gleaming chrome sections welded to what looked like burnt titanium, with strange crystalline growths jutting from its surface like technological coral. Scorch marks and impact craters covered every visible surface, yet somehow the vessel moved with predatory grace. "By the void," whispered Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's xenobiologist. Her dark eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. "What is that thing?" Navigation Officer Korvac, a massive bear-like Urson, growled low in his throat. "Readings are off the charts, Captain. That hull, it's registering materials with atomic structures I've never seen. And the energy signatures?" He paused, his clawed fingers hesitating over his console. "Captain, this ship is broadcasting a Class 15 designation beacon." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. In the 47 years since the Galactic Confederation had established the planetary classification system, no world had ever been rated higher than Class 12. Class 12 worlds were considered uninhabitable nightmares, planets where the very air could dissolve your lungs, where gravity could crush you flat, where the native life forms could tear through battle armor like tissue paper. Class 15 was supposed to be theoretical. It was the classification for worlds so dangerous that even sending probes was considered suicide. "Thix, what's our threat assessment?" Zara asked, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her veins. "Scanning. The Zentari's antennae twitched nervously. "Captain, I'm reading massive weapon systems, energy cannons that could crack a moon, projectile launchers firing rounds the size of our shuttle bay, and something else. Something organic integrated into the ship's systems." "Organic?" Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "What kind of organic? I'm not sure. It's like the ship is alive in some way. Growing, adapting. And Captain," Thix's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, "there are life signs aboard. Thousands of them. The derelict vessel, though derelict seemed wrong for something that radiated such menace, continued its approach. As it drew closer, they could make out more details that defied explanation. Sections of the hull seemed to pulse with bioluminescent veins. Weapon arrays tracked their station with mechanical precision, as if the ship was aware of their presence. "Open all channels," Zara commanded. "Let's see if anyone's home." The communications array crackled to life, and immediately the bridge filled with a sound that made everyone's blood freeze. It was laughter, human laughter, but wrong somehow, too deep, too knowing, carrying harmonics that seemed to vibrate in their bones. Then came a voice speaking perfect galactic standard with an accent none of them recognized. Well, look what we have here. A little Confederation survey station, all alone in the dark." The voice was male, young-sounding but with an undercurrent that spoke of experiences that would break lesser minds. "I'm Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We've been away from home for a very, very long time." Zara found her voice. "This is Captain Chen of Survey Station Kepler-7. We're registering your ship as broadcasting a Class 15 origin designation." That's impossible." Another laugh, this one joined by others in the background. "Impossible? Lady, where we come from, impossible is just Tuesday. Class 15? Yeah, that sounds about right. Earth's what you'd call a challenging neighborhood. Earth? Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. But Earth is classified as a mythical origin point. No one's ever found evidence of, oh, we're real enough. The voice cut her off. Real and really tired of being away from home. Here's the thing, though. We've been listening to your communications. Seems like the galaxy's gotten itself organized while we were gone. Confederations and classifications and all sorts of bureaucratic nonsense. The ship was close now. Close enough that they could see movement through transparent sections of the hull. Figures in armor that seemed more grown than manufactured, carrying weapons that looked like they'd been carved from the bones of titans. We've got a problem, though, Captain Reed continued, his voice taking on a more serious tone. See, we've been fighting our way across the galaxy for the better part of 2 centuries, trying to get home, and we've learned some things about survival that your Confederation might find disturbing. What kind of things? Zara asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. The kind of things you learn when every single day is a fight, to the death. When your ship becomes your weapon and your weapon becomes part of you, when you realize that in a universe full of things trying to kill you, the only way to survive is to become something they're afraid of. Through the viewport, they could see the Prometheus extending docking clamps, massive mechanical arms that moved with organic fluidity. But these weren't standard docking procedures. The clamps were positioning themselves to completely envelop their station. Captain Reed, Zara said carefully, what are your intentions? Oh, don't worry. We're not here to hurt you. Hell, it's been so long since we've talked to anyone who wasn't trying to tear our throats out. This is actually kind of nice. His voice carried genuine warmth, which somehow made it more terrifying. But we need supplies, information, and most importantly, we need to know what's happened to our homeworld while we've been gone. The docking clamps made contact with their station, and the entire structure shuddered. Through the hull they could hear new sounds, the hiss of airlocks equalizing, the heavy footfalls of boots in their corridors. You see, Captain Reed's voice now came from their internal communication system as well as the external channels. 200 years ago, Earth was attacked. Our entire planet was classified as a Class 15 Deathworld by something calling itself the Hegemony. They tried to exterminate every human in existence. The lights flickered as the Prometheus's systems interfaced with their own. They failed. Chapter 2. The Survivors. The first human to step onto their bridge was not what any of them had expected. Captain Marcus Reed looked impossibly young, maybe 25 standard years, but his eyes held depths that spoke of centuries. His skin had a subtle metallic sheen, and thin lines of what looked like circuitry traced patterns along his temples. His uniform seemed to be alive, shifting and adapting to his movements like a second skin. Behind him came 3 others, each as unsettling in their own way. A woman with silver hair that moved like it was underwater, her fingertips ending in what looked like organic data ports. A massive man whose left arm had been replaced with something that was clearly not mechanical. It pulsed with veins and seemed to have its own nervous system, and bringing up the rear. Someone who might once have been human but now had compound eyes like Thix's, and skin that shifted color with their emotions. 200 years, Reed said conversationally, looking around their bridge with interest. That's how long we've been fighting our way back home. You know what happens to people in 200 years of constant warfare against impossible odds? Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. You adapt. Very good, Doctor. Reed tilted his head slightly. Vasquez. Elena Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez. Yes, we adapted, had to. The things we fought, well, let me put it this way. That hegemony force that attacked Earth, they were the equivalent of a scouting party. They classified Earth as a Class 15 Deathworld not because of what was there, but because of what they knew humans could become. The woman with silver hair moved to one of their computer terminals and placed her hand on it. Immediately, the screen began displaying data that made Thix's compound. Eyes go wide. This is our ship's memory banks, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested her vocal cords had been modified. I'm Commander Sarah Chen, no relation to your captain, I assume, Chief Information Officer of the Prometheus. What you're seeing is our journey home. The holographic display filled with images that defied description. Vast space battles against creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness. Planets covered in what looked like technological jungle, where the very ground tried to digest anything that landed on it. Ships the size of moons crewed by beings that existed in dimensions their instruments couldn't properly register. We fought the crystalline swarms of Nexus 7, Reed continued, settling into a chair that seemed to mold itself to his body. Creatures that could turn matter into crystal with a touch, that communicated through harmonic resonance that could shatter your bones. We learned to sing back. The massive man with the organic arm stepped forward. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, combat engineer. The Void Runners of the Spiral Nebula tried to drain our life force to fuel their ships. We learned to feed on their energy instead. The fourth member of their group, the one with compound eyes, spoke in a voice that buzzed like an insect's wings. Chief biologist, former human now called Echo. The hive minds of Sector 12 tried to absorb our consciousness into their collective. We learned to think faster, deeper, in ways that broke their neural networks. Captain Chen found her voice. You're telling us that humans have been fighting a 200-year war across the galaxy? Not just fighting, Reed corrected. Winning, adapting, becoming something new. Earth was attacked because the hegemony's deep space scanners detected something on our homeworld that terrified them. They saw a species with unlimited adaptability, unlimited potential for growth and change. And they were right to be afraid. Sarah Chen added, streams of data flowing through her fingertips into their computer systems. Because we didn't just survive their attack. We learned from it. Every world that tried to kill us taught us something new. Every impossible enemy made us stronger. Dr. Vasquez was scanning them with her tricorder, her expression growing more amazed and horrified with each reading. Your biology, it's not human anymore. Not entirely. Define human, Echo buzzed. Are we human because we were born on Earth? Because we retain human consciousness? Or are we human because we refuse to let the universe break us? Reed stood and walked to their viewport, looking out at the star field. We've been fighting our way home for 2 centuries because we heard something in the deep space communications arrays. Earth was calling for help. Faint signals, desperate transmissions, coordinates for a final stand. Your homeworld is still fighting? Korvac asked, his voice barely above a growl. Oh yes, Morrison said, flexing his organic arm. Earth never fell. Couldn't fall. You see, the hegemony made a fundamental error in their assessment. They classified Earth as a Class 15 death world based on what they thought humans could become. But they never considered what would happen if you trapped humans on a planet that was actively trying to kill them for 200 years. The lights dimmed slightly as more data flowed through their systems. Your Confederation has been very busy while we were gone, Sarah observed. Mapping systems, classifying worlds, establishing trade routes. Very organized, very safe. What do you mean? Zara asked, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want to know. Reed turned back to them, and for the first time they could see something that might have been pity in his ancient eyes. I mean, you've created a civilization based on avoiding danger, classifying threats so you can steer clear of them, building your society in the safest possible spaces. That's logical, Thix protested. Why would anyone seek out dangerous worlds? Because, Echo said, danger is where evolution happens. Comfort is where species stagnate and die. The ship shuddered slightly, and new readings appeared on their screens. More vessels were dropping out of hyperspace. Dozens of them, all broadcasting the same Class 15 designation. Our fleet, Reed explained. What's left of it? We started with 5,000 ships and 2 million humans. We're down to 47 ships and about 30,000 people. But those 30,000... He smiled, and the expression was both beautiful and terrifying. Those 30,000 are worth more than most star systems in terms of combat capability. What do you want from us? Zara asked directly. Information, supplies, and most importantly, we want to know if your Confederation is going to be a problem when we get to Earth. A problem how? Morrison laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Captain Chen, we're about to arrive at our homeworld after 2 centuries of warfare. Earth has been under siege that entire time, turning it into something your Confederation would classify as completely uninhabitable. We're bringing technologies and biological adaptations that would be considered war crimes in civilized space. And, Sarah added, her silver hair writhing as she interfaced with their systems, we're about to discover what 200 years of constant warfare has done to the humans who stayed behind. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. You. See? Reed said softly. We're the lucky ones. We got to leave. Chapter 3. The Revelation. 3 hours later, the conference room of Survey Station Kepler 7 had been transformed into something between a war room and a xenobiology lab. The humans from the Prometheus had interfaced their technology with the station's systems, creating holographic displays that showed things the Confederation had never imagined. This is Earth, Sarah Chen said, her organic data cables plugged directly into the station's main computer, or what it's become. The hologram showed a planet that defied every classification system the Confederation had ever developed. The continents were still recognizable, but they pulsed with veins of energy that could be seen from space. The oceans had turned a deep purple color, and massive structures, part organic, part technological, rose from their depths like the ribs of some impossible creature. Your planet is alive, Dr. Vasquez whispered. More than alive, Echo corrected, their compound eyes reflecting the holographic light in fractal patterns. It's evolved. Earth and humanity merged during the siege. Had to. The hegemony's final attack involved seeding our planet with what they called extinction viruses, biological weapons designed to make the very air toxic to human life. But instead of dying, Morrison added, flexing his organic arm, humans did what humans do. We adapted, we integrated, we became part of the planet's immune system. The hologram shifted, showing massive cities that seemed to be grown rather than built. Structures that curved and flowed like living tissue, connected by networks of what looked like glowing arteries. The humans who stayed on Earth, Reed said quietly, they had it worse than us. We only had to fight our way across the galaxy. They had to fight for their world's very soul. And they won, but the cost. The image zoomed in on one of the cities. Figures moved through the streets, human in outline but changed in ways that made even the crew of the Prometheus look normal. Some had skin that seemed to be made of living metal. Others moved with too many joints, and some appeared to phase, in and out of visibility. They're still human, Sarah said defensively. Still thinking, feeling, creating. But they've become something that can survive on a world the hegemony designed to be uninhabitable. Captain Chen leaned forward, studying the images. How many of them are there? Best estimates? About 50 million. Down from 8 billion when the siege started, but... Reed paused. Those 50 million are possibly the most dangerous humans who have ever existed. Dangerous to whom? Zara asked. To anyone who threatens their world. To anyone who doesn't understand what they've sacrificed to survive. Echo's skin shifted through several colors as they spoke. They've been alone for 2 centuries, Captain. Alone and under constant attack. They've developed technologies and biological capabilities that make our modifications look primitive. Morrison stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the fleet of human ships. We're bringing them news that the galaxy is inhabited by peaceful civilizations, that there are species out there who've never had to fight for their existence, that there's a confederation dedicated to avoiding conflict rather than mastering it. And you think they won't react well to this information? Korvac asked. I think, Reed said carefully, that a species that has spent 200 years learning that the universe is trying to kill them might have developed some very specific ideas about how to prevent that from happening again. The hologram shifted again, showing the space around Earth. It wasn't empty. Vast structures orbited the planet, some clearly artificial, others that seemed to have grown like spaceborne coral reefs, and moving between them. By the void, Thix chittered, his translator struggling with the excitement in his voice. What are those? The creatures in the display were enormous, easily the size of cruiser-class starships, but clearly alive. They moved with purpose through the orbital structures, and as the crew watched, one of them noticed something approaching the system and changed. Its form flowed like liquid, becoming something bristling with weapons that defied easy classification. Guardian. Organism, Sarah explained. Earth's orbital defense system. They're symbiotic with the planet's consciousness now. Any threat that approaches Earth has to deal with them first. And you're planning to take us there? Dr. Vasquez asked, her voice slightly higher than normal. We're planning to go home, Reed corrected. With or without you. But we thought you might want to know what you're dealing with before we arrive. What? We're dealing with? Morrison turned back from the viewport. Captain Chen, in about 6 months, your Confederation is going to discover that humanity, real, evolved, adapted humanity, still exists. And they're going to want to know why no one came to help during the 200-year siege. We didn't know, Zara protested. Earth was classified as mythical. There were no records. No records? Sarah's silver hair writhed angrily. We've been monitoring Confederation communications for the past 50 years. We know about your survey fleets, your exploration protocols, your careful cataloging of safe worlds. Earth has been broadcasting distress signals for 2 centuries. Echo's skin flashed through angry reds and oranges. Either your Confederation has been deliberately ignoring those signals, or your technology is so primitive that you couldn't detect them. Either way, it's going to be a problem. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Zara spoke. What do you want us to do? Reed stood and began pacing, his living uniform shifting color with his mood. We want you to send a message to your Confederation. Tell them that humanity is coming home. Tell them that we've learned things in our exile that they need to know. And tell them that if they want to avoid a war, they need to start preparing for a very different kind of first contact. A war? Korvac growled. Are you threatening us? No, Reed said sadly. I'm warning you, because the thing is, Captain Chen, we're the moderate faction. We've been traveling for 2 centuries, meeting other species, learning that not everything in the universe is hostile. We want peace. We want cooperation. We want to rejoin the galactic community. But the humans on Earth, Morrison added, they've had a very different experience. They've learned that survival requires absolute strength, that mercy is a luxury that gets you killed, that the only way to ensure your species' survival is to make sure that no one else can threaten it. Sarah nodded grimly. When we arrive at Earth, we're going to find humans who have spent 200 years becoming the most dangerous predators the galaxy has ever seen, and we're going to have to convince them that the rest of the galaxy doesn't need to be conquered or destroyed. And if you can't convince them? Dr. Vasquez asked. Echo's compound eyes focused on her with uncomfortable intensity. Then the hegemonies. Assessment was correct. Humans are a Class 15 species, and Class 15 species don't have neighbors, they have territories. Reed stopped pacing and looked directly at Captain Chen. We're trying to prevent that outcome, but we need help. We need your Confederation to understand what's coming and prepare for it properly. How do we prepare for something like this? By remembering, Morrison said grimly, that evolution never stops, and sometimes the things that evolve aren't the ones you expect. Outside the viewport, the human fleet hung silent in space, waiting. And somewhere beyond them, Earth continued its ancient orbit, carrying 50 million humans who had learned that the universe was their enemy, and had learned to fight back. Chapter 4. The Choice, the emergency session of the Confederation. Council had been in progress for 18 hours. Captain Chen watched the holographic faces of representatives from 47 different species argue, debate, and occasionally threaten each other as they tried to process the information from Survey Station Kepler 7. This is impossible, declared Councillor Vex, their crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. A single species developing Class 15 capabilities? The statistical probability is irrelevant, interrupted Ambassador Korvac. Not their navigator officer, but his sister who represented the Urson Confederacy. They're here. They're real. And according to the data, they're bringing technologies that could destabilize the entire galactic balance. Captain Reed stood at the center of the chamber, having been transported via quantum entanglement to give his testimony in person. His modified form looked almost normal under the chamber's soft lighting, but Chen could see the subtle movements of his living uniform, the way his eyes tracked every representative simultaneously. "Honored counselors," Reed said, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "We didn't ask for this transformation. We didn't choose to become what we are. But when your homeworld is under siege for 2 centuries, you adapt or you die. We chose to adapt. By violating every biological and technological taboo known to civilized space," accused Representative Thane of the Ethical Committee. "The modifications we're seeing in your species, they're abominations." Reed's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. "Abominations? We integrated nanotechnology with our biology to survive atmospheric toxins. We developed quantum consciousness links to coordinate defense against hive mind attackers. We grew organic weapon systems to fight creatures that could consume traditional metals." His voice remained level, but there was something underneath it that made several representatives shift uncomfortably. "Every abomination you see was a solution to something trying to kill us." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward from the observer section. "If I may, counselors, I've been studying the biological data from the Prometheus crew. What they've achieved isn't just adaptation, it's directed evolution. They've managed to guide their own species development in real time, responding to threats as they emerged. Which is precisely the problem," Counselor Vex insisted. "A species with unlimited adaptability is, by definition, unpredictable. How do we establish diplomatic relations with beings who can change their fundamental nature at will?" Reed smiled, and several representatives flinched. "The same way you establish relations with any intelligent species, Counselor. You communicate. You find common ground, you respect each other's sovereignty. And if we can't find common ground," asked Ambassador Korvac, "then you get out of our way." Sarah Chen's voice came from the quantum communicator. She had remained on the Prometheus but was linked into the session. "Because we're going home, with or without your approval." The chamber erupted in protests and demands for clarification. Through the chaos, Chen could see Reed watching the proceedings with the patience of someone who had seen much worse than political arguments. Finally, High Counselor Iren called for order. The ancient ethereal's voice resonated through dimensions beyond normal sound. "Captain Reed, what assurance can you give us that your people will abide by Confederation law once you return to Earth?" Reed was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words carried weight that seemed to press against the chamber walls. "High Counselor, with respect, your Confederation law was written by species who have never faced existential threats, who have never had to choose between preserving their ethics and preserving their existence. Are you saying ethics are optional?" Representative Thane demanded. "I'm saying that ethics are luxury goods," Reed replied. "When you're fighting for the survival of your species every single day for 200 years, you develop a very different understanding of right and wrong." Morrison's voice joined the communication from the Prometheus. "The question isn't whether we'll abide by your laws, counselors. The question is whether your laws will make sense in a universe where humanity exists." The implications of that statement settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Finally, Dr. Vasquez spoke again. "What exactly are you planning to do when you reach Earth?" "Reunite with our people," Reed said simply. "Share what we've learned about the galaxy. Try to convince them that not everything out here needs to be fought or feared. And if they disagree," Reed's expression grew distant, "then we hope your Confederation has good emergency protocols." High Counselor Iren leaned forward, their ethereal form flickering with concern. "Captain Reed, you speak as if your people are a force of nature rather than a civilization." "Aren't they the same thing?" Echo's voice buzzed through the communicator. "Civilizations are just evolution by other means, and evolution doesn't ask permission." Captain Chen found herself standing, surprising everyone, including herself. "Counselors, I've spent the last week with these people. I've seen their technology, their biology, their capabilities, and I've also seen their restraint." She gestured toward Reed. "Captain Reed could have taken our station by force. His crew could have extracted the information they needed and left us drifting in space. Instead, they chose diplomacy. They chose to warn us. A point in their favor, acknowledged Ambassador Korvac. But here's what I think we're missing. Chen continued. They're not asking for our permission to go home. They're offering us a choice: work with them to prepare for what's coming, or face it unprepared. Reed nodded slowly. Captain Chen understands. We're not here to ask if we can exist, counselors. We already exist. We're here to ask if you want to exist alongside us, or if you'd prefer to pretend we're not real until we show up at your borders. The chamber fell silent as the representatives absorbed this. Finally, Counselor Vex spoke. What would cooperation look like? Information exchange, Sarah's voice replied immediately. Medical data, technological specifications, cultural briefings. Help us understand what the galaxy has become, and we'll help you understand what humanity has become. And in return? Morrison's laugh was audible through the communicator. In return, when the next hegemony shows up, and there will be a next one, counselors, because the universe is full of species that see other civilizations as resources to be consumed, you'll have allies who know how to fight back. High Counselor Iran was quiet for several minutes, consulting with advisors through methods the other species couldn't perceive. Finally, they spoke. Captain Reed, we will establish a joint task force to facilitate communication between the Confederation and your people. We will provide what assistance we can in your return to Earth, but we will also be monitoring the situation very carefully. Understood, Reed replied. But Counselor, there's something else you need to know. Yes? Reed's expression grew grim. We're not the only human survivors out there. During our journey home, we encountered other fleets, other groups that escaped Earth during the siege. Some went deeper into the galaxy than we did. Some found things we didn't. What kind of things? The kind of things that make our modifications look conservative. Echo buzzed ominously. There are humans out there who gave up more of their original nature than we did, who adapted to environments that would kill us as quickly as they'd kill you. The chamber's atmosphere grew noticeably tenser. How many other survivors are there? Dr. Vasquez asked. Unknown, Reed admitted. But they'll be coming home too eventually. Earth calls to all of us no matter how far we've traveled or how much we've changed. And when they arrive? Reed met High Counselor Iran's gaze directly. Then we'll all find out just how much evolution the galaxy can handle. The session ended an hour later with an agreement to establish the Joint Task Force and provide assistance to the human fleet. As the representatives signed off one by one, Captain Chen remained behind to speak with Reed. What haven't you told them? She asked quietly. Reed's smile was tired and ancient. That we're the advanced scouts, Captain. We came ahead to prepare, the way because we're the most diplomatic of the human survivors. He paused. The main fleet arrives in 6 months, 1,500 ships carrying humans who make us look like pacifists. And Earth itself? Earth has been preparing for our return for 50 years. They know we're coming. They know we're bringing news of the wider galaxy. Reed's expression grew distant. They're very excited to meet their neighbors. As Reed's image faded from the quantum entanglement field, Captain Chen found herself staring out at the stars and wondering if the Confederation had just made the right choice, or sealed its fate. Outside, the human fleet began its final approach to Earth, carrying with it the future of 2 civilizations, neither of which would ever be the same again. Epilogue. Homecoming 6 months later. The space around Earth was unlike anything in Confederation records. What had once been a simple solar system had been transformed into something that defied easy categorization. Part fortress, part organism, part technological wonder. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Confederation flagship Harmony, watching, as the human fleet approached their homeworld. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of preparation, negotiation, and revelation, as both sides tried to understand what they were dealing with. The Joint Task Force had been illuminating. Human. Technology that seemed to violate several laws of physics, biological modifications that challenged the definition of life itself. And underneath it all, a species that had spent 200 years learning that the universe was actively hostile and had decided to become more hostile in return. Captain, reported Scanner Chief Nix, Thix's cousin, assigned to the mission for his expertise with unusual readings. We're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system, not just from the orbital structures, but from the planet itself. Through the viewport, Earth was visible as they approached. It was still recognizably the homeworld of humanity, but it pulsed with veins of energy that could be seen from space. The continents themselves seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in slow rhythms that suggested the planet had developed its own cardiovascular system. There, Dr. Vasquez pointed to one of the massive orbital structures. That's where, Captain Reed said, we should dock. The structure in question was easily the size of a small moon, but it was clearly alive. Organic surfaces intertwined with technological components in patterns that suggested they had grown together, rather than been assembled. As they watched, the structure extended what could only be described as a docking tentacle toward their ship. "This is Captain Reed," came the familiar voice over their communications array. "Welcome to Earth, Confederation representatives. We've prepared quarters for you that should be compatible with your biology." The docking process was unlike anything they had experienced. Instead of mechanical clamps and airlocks, the station seemed to analyze their ship and grow an interface specifically designed for their vessel. Within minutes, they had a sealed connection that registered as perfectly stable despite being composed of what appeared to be living tissue. Reed met them at the airlock, but he looked different, more integrated with his technology, more complete somehow. His eyes held depths that spoke of reunion, of coming home after an impossibly long journey. 200 years, he said simply. "It's good to be back." "Captain Reed," Chen greeted him. "Your people, have they accepted our presence?" Reed's smile was enigmatic. "They're curious about you. It's been a long time since Earth has had visitors who didn't arrive shooting." As they moved through the station's corridors, the Confederation delegation couldn't help but stare. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. Gravity adjusted automatically to accommodate their different physiologies. The very air seemed alive, filtering and purifying itself moment by moment. "Your station is remarkable," Dr. Vasquez observed, taking readings with instruments that were having difficulty categorizing what they were detecting. "Station?" Reed laughed. "Doctor, this isn't a station. This is Earth's appendix." "Appendix?" "Earth developed a distributed consciousness during the siege. The planet itself became aware, integrated with human survivors to create a hybrid intelligence. These orbital structures are sensory organs, defense nodes, and communication hubs all in one. They emerged into a vast chamber that opened onto space through what appeared to be a transparent membrane, and there, floating in the void beyond, were the other inhabitants of the system. The guardian organisms they had seen in the recordings were even more impressive in person. Each one was unique, evolved for specific defensive purposes. Some bristled, with weapon systems that seemed to be grown rather than manufactured. Others moved through space with grace that suggested they were as comfortable in vacuum as fish were in water, and all of them were watching the Confederation delegation with what could only be described as intelligent curiosity. "They're beautiful," Dr. Vasquez whispered. "They're also deciding whether you're a threat," Reed said casually. "Don't worry, they've been briefed on your arrival, but they've never seen non-human sapients before who weren't actively trying to kill them." A new voice joined the conversation, seeming to come from the walls themselves. It was human in cadence but carried harmonics that suggested multiple speakers. "The visitors are welcomed," the voice said. "We have prepared spaces for their comfort. We are curious about their nature." "That's Earth speaking," Reed explained. "The planetary consciousness. It's been looking forward to meeting you." Captain Chen found her voice. "Earth. The planet. Itself is sapient? More than sapient," Reed corrected. "Earth is a collective consciousness composed of the planet's biosphere, the human survivors, and the technological systems we've integrated over the past 2 centuries. It thinks, it feels, it makes decisions. And right now, it's very interested in learning about the galaxy beyond our system. The membrane wall began to show images, not projected but somehow grown into its structure. They showed scenes from across the galaxy, Confederation worlds, alien cities, peaceful trading stations, scientific research facilities. These are the worlds you've shown us, Earth's voice continued. So much life, so much diversity, so many civilizations that have never known the fear of extinction. We're very fortunate, Ambassador Korvac said carefully. Yes, Earth agreed. You are. And we are very interested in ensuring that your fortune continues. The images shifted, showing other scenes. Massive fleets moving through space, worlds being stripped of resources, entire star systems going dark. The hegemony was not unique, Earth continued. During our siege, we detected similar forces throughout the galaxy. Civilizations that view other species as resources. Empires built on conquest and consumption. They are coming, and your confederation is not prepared. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. What do you mean, not prepared? Reed gestured to the images. Doctor, your entire civilization is built on the assumption that rational beings will behave rationally, that conflicts can be resolved through diplomacy, that everyone shares your basic values of cooperation and mutual benefit. Those aren't bad assumptions, Chen protested. No, Reed agreed. They're not, but they're luxury assumptions. They only work when everyone involved has enough resources and security to afford being rational. The images changed again, showing recordings from the human fleet's journey, battles against creatures that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, negotiations with species that communicated through pain, worlds where the very concept of individual consciousness was considered a disease. We've traveled the galaxy for 200 years. Morrison's voice joined the conversation as he entered the chamber. We've seen what's out there beyond your safe zones, and Captain, it's not pretty. The hegemony that attacked us was just one of dozens of similar forces, Sarah added, her silver hair interfacing with the chamber's systems, empires built on the principle that might makes right, and they're all heading toward the galactic core, toward the civilized worlds. When? Ambassador Korvac asked grimly. Some are already here, Echo buzzed, their compound eyes reflecting the images. The Void Runners we fought in the Spiral Nebula? They were scouts for a larger force? The crystalline swarms of Nexus 7? They're part of a nomadic empire that consumes entire star systems. Earth's voice grew more serious. We estimate that within the next 50 years, your confederation will face at least 3 major invasion forces, each one capable of destroying civilizations. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. What do you propose? Chen asked finally. Integration, Reed said simply. Not conquest, not subjugation. Partnership. We share our defensive technologies, our adaptation techniques, our survival strategies. You share your scientific knowledge, your cultural diversity, your diplomatic experience. And together, Earth added, we prepare for what's coming. Dr. Vasquez was studying her readings with growing amazement. The biological integration you've achieved, it's not just impressive, it's revolutionary. You've created a form of directed evolution that could allow any species to adapt to almost any environment. Exactly, Morrison nodded. We can teach your people to survive in conditions that would kill them now. We can help you develop defenses against weapons you've never imagined. We can show you how to turn your worlds into fortresses that can withstand anything. But, Sarah added, there's a price. True adaptation means accepting change, permanent change. The humans you're talking to now are not the same species that left Earth 200 years ago. We've evolved. We've become something new. Are you still human? Chen asked. Reed considered the question seriously. We're what humanity becomes when it refuses to die. Whether that's still human in the traditional sense, I guess that depends on how you define humanity. We define it as the refusal to surrender, Earth's voice said softly. The insistence that consciousness, creativity, and love will survive, no matter what the universe throws at them. By that definition, we are more human than we've ever been. Ambassador Korvac stepped forward. What would this integration look like? Voluntary, Reed assured him. No species would be forced to change, but those who choose to adapt would gain access to technologies and capabilities that could ensure their survival. And those who don't would be protected by those who do, Morrison said, because that's what civilizations do. They protect the things that make existence worth preserving. The membrane wall showed new images, possible futures. Confederation worlds transformed into living ecosystems that could defend themselves. Fleets of ships that were as much organism as machine. Beings that retained their essential nature while gaining the ability to adapt to any challenge. It's not just about survival, Earth explained. It's about growth, about becoming something greater than the sum of your parts, about ensuring that consciousness continues to evolve and expand throughout the universe. Dr. Vasquez was practically vibrating with excitement. The applications for medical science alone. We could eliminate disease, extend lifespans indefinitely, give people the ability to survive in any environment. And more importantly, Echo added, you could develop the psychological and philosophical frameworks to handle whatever challenges the universe presents. Fear becomes adaptation. Despair becomes determination. Weakness becomes strength. Captain Chen looked around the chamber, at the living walls and the watching guardian organisms, and the humans who had become something more than human. How long do we have to decide? The Joint Task Force has been preparing preliminary proposals for 6 months, Reed said. We can begin small-scale integration programs immediately, but full adaptation, that takes years, decades. The sooner we start, the better prepared we'll be. And if the Confederation refuses? Reed's expression grew sad. Then when the invasions come, we'll do what we can to help. But we won't sacrifice our people for civilizations that chose to remain vulnerable. That's not a threat. Earth's voice clarified. It's simply reality. Evolution doesn't wait for permission. Adaptation doesn't pause for politics. The universe is changing, and the only choice is whether to change with it or be left behind. The delegation spent the next 3 days touring Earth's orbital structures, meeting with humans who had undergone various forms of integration, and seeing technologies that challenged everything they thought they knew about biology and physics. Ani, their final day, they were taken to Earth's surface. The planet was not the world described in ancient databases. It was something entirely new, a fusion of organic and technological that pulsed with life and intelligence. Cities that grew like forests, transportation networks that flowed like rivers, defensive systems that were indistinguishable from the planet's natural processes, and everywhere, humans who had chosen to become something more than human. This is what we're offering, Reed said as they stood on a balcony overlooking a city that seemed to breathe. Not just survival, but transcendence, the chance to become something worthy of the universe's challenges. And if we're not ready for that level of change, Chen asked. Then we'll protect you until you are, Earth replied. Because that's what families do. And whether you accept it or not, you're part of our family now. The family of conscious beings who refuse to let the darkness win. As their ship prepared to depart, carrying news of Earth's transformation back to the Confederation, Captain Chen found herself wondering what the future would hold. Would the Confederation choose adaptation, or would they cling to their comfortable assumptions about the nature of the universe? Either way, she realized the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had returned, transformed and transcendent, carrying with them the promise of evolution and the threat of obsolescence. The universe was about to learn what happened when a species refused to accept extinction. And somewhere in the deep, void between stars, ancient empires that had slumbered for millennia began to stir, drawn by the scent of new prey and the promise of fresh worlds to consume. The real test was just beginning. The end.